Really enjoyed having him on here. And before we go over to Matt Chorzler and talk the NAIA guys we think have a chance to go pro, I want to just leave you guys with this statistic. And, you know, sue me, I just grabbed it off Twitter earlier today, and it's not vetted for whatever. But this right here, man, only 20% of NCAA Division II scholarship athletes, not just football, athletes, who enter the transfer portal end up receiving a scholarship from another institution. Only 27%, so 27 out of 100 kids who enter the transfer portal are getting an athletic scholarship somewhere else. And Stan says, this is a story that needs to be told. Do the math. 73% give up a scholarship to enter the portal and don't get one to replace it. It goes back to, you know, the grass isn't always greener, right? And leaving doesn't necessarily guarantee you a better situation on the other side. And Stan is at least a somewhat reputable source, vice president for athletics at University of Central Oklahoma right there. And it's not like this guy is just tweeting out of his ass. But I can certainly appreciate this statistic, and it's something that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show, is that, and we're still in the very early stages of it, I think the transfer portal, and speaking relatively, like this has not been around for a long time, and as this continues to be implemented, I actually think, and this could be a crazy take, but I think we'll see those numbers start to go down as far as how many kids are just entering the portal. Because right now, the allure, and I hope that's the right word, but the allure and the incentive to go jump in the portal and what that feels like and the promise on the other side, I think is very tempting to a lot of student athletes, because there is a lot of the unknown. The less unknown and the more known there is this whole transfer portal business, and more stats that come out like this from Stan about the 27% that are actually getting athletic aid on the other side, I think the more info we have is going to just continue to slow that process and maybe change the thought process of these student athletes that are right now very quick to jump into the portal and test the waters. But as we start to figure out more and more of the actual real life consequences of what these actions have, again, I'll take 2 steps back and say once again, I think the transfer portal is absolutely a necessary thing in college athletics. Do I love the way it's been implemented and the way that it currently functions? Maybe not. But I think the idea itself is incredibly necessary and does serve a purpose in college athletics. So if for those of you who haven't heard my rants on that before, that's kind of my stance on it. But I do think, kind of going back to my original take, the more we find out and the more info and data that comes out as they're able to track this data and information over these next couple of years, the more we're going to see students that are maybe a little bit more well-advised and have maybe a more in-depth thought process. Because that's one of my biggest gripes with the transfer portal, is that you can be in the transfer portal in like half an hour or an hour. Like, it doesn't take very long if you assume you get the correct communication with your compliance officer at your university. These things can happen in the same day. And so for me, most of them aren't impulse decisions, but having the ability to make that decision that quickly and how much that impacts the life of one of these student athletes, crazy. But wanted to leave you guys with that statistic right there. 27% of the D2 scholarship athletes who enter the transfer portal end up receiving a scholarship from another institution. Just thought it was worth saying. Take it as you may, with one grain of salt, with the whole bag of salt. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just here to give the information. I'm just the messenger. But we'll move over to NAIA with the man, Matt Chorzler. Finish out the episode talking some draft stock of some NAIA studs.